gonna do it anyway. We're gonna do it anyway. We're gonna do it anyway.
Hey, and welcome back to the next episode of the journey to a plus 20 with a pug. Last episode, we managed to plus 3 our Shadow Moon burial ground, and we're now left with a plus 11 temple. So let's see what happens in this run. Now we're going to push a little bit here. We're going to do a double pull with the water speaker into the water elemental, and the water speaker has to be kicked and pulled around the corner just to group it. I kick it, but the aggro gets pulled from me straight away, even with a taunt, which makes it a bit rough at the beginning on grabbing that. The idea behind bringing it to the corner is we actually want this water elemental to be able to be line of sighted when it casts, what is it? Tainted Ripple, that's the one. Everybody can avoid that damage apart from the tank if you run around the corner when it casts. So you can see I've just popped that up on my screen. You can take it there. When it casts, people can run around the corner. You will see my evoker does this pretty well as he comes back. It's a good habit to get into at lower keys because it's almost mandatory at the upper keys just to really help out. We get a nice AMZ there from the DK. But you will see every time we get a water, I think the evoker's probably on it the most. Yep, there we can see quick pop around the corner to avoid that dot. So we managed to save a little bit of time here, and we're going to continue pulling. Now, I don't actually know what happened here, so let's have a look, because somehow the group behind manages to get pulled, and it looks like it's done by the DK breath just there. I can see that that flew across, and I don't actually notice that we have another pack coming in. So I see these droplets coming. I'm wondering what's going on, why are we dying, and I see that water speaker at the back. So I decide to come around the corner to get some LOS on that caster, and you can see this is a really, really messy start. I LOS, bring everybody round, allow that water speaker to run up, and then I can kick it, and we can move back into position at the corner. And these are some of the things that you need to be able to adapt to in these pug runs. Sometimes you don't know what's going to happen, and you know, you just have to adapt from it. I do bring a piece just to mess around with that water speaker, break the cast. Our kicks are pretty good here. We've recovered quite nicely. A touch of death on that water ripple, and we can finish up with this water speaker. Now, I would definitely recommend doing them in 2 different packs. You do not need them at these lower levels to actually make it in time, so it's always good playing a bit safer. I paralyzed one of the water speakers. You can get them both, but trying to manage the kicks can be quite difficult on both of them. So doing them one at a time is probably the simpler one. You can see in this case, they can LOS the water elemental at the top of the stairs, which is why it's been brought down to the side. So you can see, having a look, both the priest and the evoker was managed to avoid that. We kill the first one, we move on to the next water speaker. So here, just a solid kick rotation. You'll see I'm tracking my interrupts just to the right of my health bars. Very, very handy to do. And probably a bit handier if you are in pre-mates. As a tank, I generally try and call out who's going to be doing the next kick as well. So I check the healer's mana. Looks like we're good to continue on straight into the next boss. And this boss, let me tell you, it is a bit of a pug killer. Especially when you have storming going on and you're wanting to avoid the water. My only recommendation that has really made this boss easier for some people is that weak aura you see at the top of my screen, which indicates when the geysers are going to come up. Now, if you don't have that, just know it comes up after every 3 splashes, but in this case, we're able to simply run around and avoid them. Apart from here, where I get knocked up, I try and roll, I panic slightly, and we get caught. Obviously, ways for me to have avoided that, but that's going to come with time as I play on the monk more and more. Now this boss, I'm going to fast forward through the rest of it now, as there's not too much to talk about here. You just want to make sure you're interrupting, dodging the one-shot mechanics, and it's just a matter of time until it falls over. So just be patient with it. I would really recommend the weak aura itself, and I can link that in the description if you would like it. Just let me know through the comments. But from here, we're going to run over to the right-hand side and start progressing through the dungeon there. And we have to adapt here again. I would take this shot in with the first two adds, as it's just one interrupt, but we end up pulling the second one from the evoker. But it's fine, we can group that up. It gets a bit dicey here. We have to use quite a lot of defensives. We have to watch out. I diffuse magic the debuff back onto the adds at one point, but really I would recommend killing the first Shah. Once that's down, you can then pull the second, because having these two adds boasted, they really hurt on fortified. So quite a dangerous pull here, but we managed to get through and save a bit of time here. Now the damage is looking pretty good. We're okay here. It's nothing amazing, but our evoker seems to be dealing quite a bit of damage, and the DKs are coming up and matching them. You can see here I am feeling the pain quite a bit. This is just the nature of having a lower item level in these keys. These pulls will be nowhere near as scary as I get up closer. So I wait, I check on my priest, call my evoker, just a bit of a ninja, and we grab these two packs. And the kicks have been really good at this point, so I'm happy to pull both of these packs. It's not a problem here. You can see the evoker does crazy damage at the start, hitting 200k DPS, which is just kind of insane on these bigger packs. But once they get kicked and damaged, very quick pack, just make sure the kicks are there. And on this one, we start to see a bit of potential around the damage Brewmasters can do on these packs. So I start to see a bit. We move up to 40k DPS, we move up to 60k. So there is going to be potential. Brewmasters are one of the higher damage classes. You are wanting to maximize your rotations and damage steal as a tank, as through the overrule is definitely going to help. Not too much to talk about these packs. Just the Shahs will do explosive damage to the entire party. More of a healer problem than yourselves, but something to think of. I touch a death that I don't want to deal with the territorial display, and we come in to this group. This is deceivingly hard, these groups, I have a feeling. The Cat Pouncers does quite a lot of high damage. You notice it gets a little bit spicy in here. I try and look for the Tiger when it does his pounce, to then stun it, to try and reduce some of the damage that's coming in. But you can see my stagger meter, there we go, I ring a piece it in. The stagger meter is filling up quite fast, and I only have so many defenses. But it's not too bad. Storming everywhere, not too much of a problem. I know that the next boss is rather easy, so I'm happy to use, you know, defensives here. I'm not too worried about the next boss at all. We finish off this pack with the terrible camera angles. Just making sure they're done. Now, you can have someone jump down to start the RP. It's probably something I'd recommend, or if you are a DPS, once you see the pack get slow, just come down and start damaging the scroll. You see my healer doesn't have any mana at the moment, but we have plenty of time for them to drink up through the RP. So at the bottom you see my focus. As soon as that dies, healer can sit down and start drinking. And therefore we aren't wasting any time. Now, a couple tactics here. You can either take these up to a certain amount of stacks, like 7 or so stacks, like we do in this video. And what happens is you damage one, and if they go to 10 stacks, that boss becomes immune to damage. So what you do is you can, two options. You can either get one to 7 stacks and then swap, And in that case, 1 never becomes immune, so you can try and maximize damage to a bit of cheeky cleave. I forget here, but we don't get it to 10, so it's okay. Or if you want to be friendly to your healer, you can take it all the way to 10 stacks and make them immune. It doesn't really make too much of a difference at this point. When they're immune, they don't do any damage. So on the higher keys, personally, I like to take them to 10 stacks. You may be losing a matter of seconds if you don't do that. Now you will notice I walk out and land on top of my healer. That's because there's a debuff going around. You see it on the DK on my frames. That is a stacking debuff. The higher that stacks, the more damage they take, but the more damage they do. You can obviously put that on the strongest DPS if you want to. So really it should be our evoker. But it's not too much of an issue. I would just recommend, because a lot of players don't even seem to realize that it exists, I would just recommend picking that up if you see the stacks getting too high or a bit too hard for your healer. Now, the inevitable storming comes out, but luckily we're on part of the boss where not much damage is coming out. Now here, I look to try and save a bit of time. This is kind of a nasty pool. It can work out. You don't need to do it by any means, but it can save you some time. So I pick up these 2 adds and bring them in. And I know I can use my defensives here. It's a bit of a habit that you need to get into, using defensives on these bigger pools or using them with your bigger pools. It's very easy to just save your defenses for the bosses. But when you're in these fortified keys, really make sure that you are playing around your defensives and knowing when am I going to be pulling big, when am I going to be doing lots of damage. Now it gets really close here, so I look at kiting a little bit, bringing them back. I'm popping my defensives again. And I managed to get the HP back up. The healing throughput is a bit low. But we are in a lower key, so that's fine. Same with myself. I know I could be doing a lot more healing once I'm a little bit higher. But coming in at 37k for the priest, 27k for myself. We move on to the next pack. And this first area is a terrible zone because of the trees. So I throw out my Chi Wave to try and pull them closer, and this one can cast through walls, so I have to run in and grab them here. Again, a bit of a struggle with this, or keeping the aggro here. Bring my camera in a little bit, not to get or lose my mind from the trees. The debuffs really hurt with the doubts. The doubts are your main tank buster here that you have to watch out for or be aware of. The Guardian Ad puts a debuff that destroys your armor by a percentage, and the doubt just does a crazy amount of tank damage, so be aware of that. If you need to kite, feel free to do so. I feel a bit safer on my monk just because of the stagger mechanic. You notice we keep losing 1 or 2 people in here, which kind of sucks. It's really not great, but we just adapt anyhow. We keep pushing on. I do not want to have to wait for them to run back, and if we look at the mini-map, they actually are running the wrong way. It just happens in these pugs. There's nothing you can do about it. We just keep progressing. Maybe you should have waited for a revive. I actually didn't know that I ran all the way to that water speaker boss, but the things you see in these recordings. We see the patrol coming, so we pull out. Now I end up pulling this pack because I think it's a little bit easier than the big shark, and I know we have the explosive shards, so I thought I'd wait a little bit until he got back himself. Didn't realize that it was so long though. And we kill these ones, making sure that the mists are there. You can paralyze it, you can stun them, you can silence them, they all work. You can pull bigger here. It's down to how much time you have. Now I'm pulling to the stairs at this point. I do like going to the cubbyhole to the left, but just, I'm not too sure why I went this way, but we decided to go with the stairs. Now here we are closest to wiping. We get these shards come up, which isn't too much of a problem, but I think our evoker pulls the shards behind and they aggro on the healer. I noticed the patrol, I think we might be okay, and then it looks like they have the biggest aggro range possible. So I try and grab them. We then have double shards come up, and the healer does great in here, and we get feared. So a very, very tough pull at this point. So we have to get some healing in, pop some defensives at this point, pull up our damage. We get an AMZ, which is super nice. Death Knight comes in just in time, and somehow we keep up with the ringer piece, and we're able to bring this pool down. Quite nice. The healing is actually kind of low considering, but we do manage to survive that, and that was just an error on pulling. But again, we're adapting. We hit our defensives when we need to, and we pull in. Now, this you can double pull. If I was a bit more geared, I would kill the smaller shards and then go into the next pack. But because of that doubt and the tank damage it does, you will see that Dark Claw come out, and you will see my health just kind of disappear a little bit. I play a bit safe here. I just think I don't need to bolster the enemies. We have, what, 13 minutes left. As long as we don't wipe, we should be okay at this point. I think about going in, but no, bolster, touch of death. Let's pull in this next pack, and we're keeping the pace going. The healer will be needing a bit of a mana break before the next boss. I always recommend setting focus to your healer. That will just allow you to really keep an eye on where they at with their mana, depending on how much healing they need to do. Now, the doubt can be stunned. As a DPS, feel free to stun those Dark Claws as they come out. I just keep an eye on the shard just because I know I want to kick it, and I'm relying on myself to do those kicks. So we let the healer get some mana, and we bring him up. Now, we ask whether they want to lust on pool or phase 2. With a fortified week, for the love of God, save it for the last pack in this area, because it does crazy damage. It does way too much damage in here, so you want to be careful. You can potentially lust in an earlier section, but it depends on how it lines up. Now with this boss, you'll see the waves come out, and a bit of a tip, one that I wasn't too sure about, is you can actually predict where they're going to come out. Now, when they're in fire phase, as you'll see now, the fire comes out in front, behind, and to their left and right immediately, so you can always leave it in the same area. However, when it's green, they come out diagonally from the boss, so they'll come out at its corners from where they are facing. So you'll see I get knocked back. I try and pull it back to the middle to try and line up these diagonals again. You'll see, let it hit me, come back and bring him out. Now also, this is quite dangerous. Whenever you get kicked, there is a massive healing absorption put onto the tank. If you look at my HP on the next kick, you will see it looks like it almost disappears and it flies through. Healers, you want to have your tank pumped and ready to do a lot of healing once they get kicked off. If you didn't see it, look back, rewind a little bit and have a look at it. And as a tank, you either want to save your defensives for part 2, when it's the Jade Essence, or save your heals, any big healing that you may have for that part 2. I was saving my orbs and my Celestial Brew for it. As soon as you get to the phase, you should have the fight down. It should be fine. It's just the Jade Essence is the area that can struggle. On tyrannical weeks, that is potentially where you're wanting to lust. We see the Jade Fiber, if we can move out of that, and we want to continue on. This first pack just requires a double kick. You can use some CDs if you're DPS to kind of kill them. Use some AoE stuns. Now, I find the pack on the left a bit harder, so I like to kill this first one, kill the pack on the right, and then have my AoE stuns again for the left one. Because there are 3 casters on the left, it may give you a bit of trouble, but there's not too much you can do apart from just make sure your kicks are there. Sorry for the audio cut, I just had to silence a bit of a notification that came up in the recording. So, I'm going to fast forward through this. I pull them back, we simply kill them. We want to kite these guardians a little bit because they have armor reduction. And this pack on the left, there are 3 casters. Sometimes you just have to take the damage that's going to be coming through. We try and rotate our stuns in there, and our pushbacks and our paralysis, and we use some damage on here. Now, this last pack is really, really scary. I just mentioned, or I would tell one person to make sure that the Shah itself is kicked, the Haunting Shah, because we don't want the Scream to go off. Now, I would normally recommend to bring this out to the courtyard and kite it out to the courtyard, but I was keeping an eye on my health and it was actually looking pretty decent on it. Evoker damage, kind of nutty. The kick gets done. It gets a bit scary once these shards are spawned. I notice them run to my healer, so I come over to them, try and pick up the aggro, and once it gets a bit scary, I decide to put down a ringer piece just to keep some distance within them. Because there are 3 doubts, 3 of those tank busters here, and they get boasted at this point, I'm just trying to avoid the damage that they are going to do to me, because I know they're going to hurt. So this pack was done very, very nicely with this group. But if you're not too sure about it, bring them out to the courtyard. The respawn is almost immediately there, so you have some backup just in case it starts going wrong and everybody else can kite back. Now, I place down the skull marker and I demonstrate on the ads. We're going to go to the wall and we're going to place our back. And what I mean by the ads is when people's soul gets sucked out to them. That allows you to group them up effectively. They need to die as soon as possible. And after the first cast, the first time he does it, we know that there is a minute in between the ad phases. Now, I have leg sweep, so I'm able to track that minute pretty effectively. This fight gets a bit scary, purely because the priest isn't dispelling immediately or straight away, which makes it a bit tougher. We get a leg sweep, we get stuns in, and it's a bit of a rough first cast. We should have mass dispel on here, which should make it easier. That's why I invited a priest, but it doesn't look like it gets cast off, which happens. If you're a DPS and you get those debuffs on you, just make sure you're using your defensives in here. We have the Evoker telling him to dispel on CD to try and get it a bit under control. Luckily, it's fortified. Now here, we're just trying to pop in some damage, single target as much as possible, but as I mentioned, your AoE damage, you should be saving for when those ads come up. I check my leg sweep, I know that those ads are coming up in about, 5 seconds at this point. We have 2 debuffs on people, we have anti-magic shell though, so it's not too bad. And with the double Death Knight as well, we are able to grip in any ads that are a bit far away. It makes it very, very nice. So you see, I leg sweep, we do our breath, and they fall over really quickly. Exactly what you want to happen. If you don't group up for it, if you're all running around the boss when they spawn, it's gonna make your life hell. So just give a bit of direction as a tank, place some markers down, and convey to your team what you would like to be done. Now we have 30 seconds till the next ads, but looking at the timer, we should have enough time to kill it. So this is when you can invest more of your CDs into this. I pop some of my damage cooldowns. I put in a little bit of damage. We're doing that crazy 12k overall damage right there. and we're able to get the kill and complete the key with 3 minutes left. Quite a few deaths, single deaths, making this a little bit awkward, but we managed to get our score. We managed to increase our IO score as well, and I believe we come out with a 12 Halls of Valor there. I checked the cloak, kind of a nice cloak. We get leather legs, big upgrade there, a lot of item levels. Crit verse is the best stats, but we'll take item level is just king at this point in time. I also, if you see people that are getting drops, inspect them. You'll see the cloak here. I check, he already has a better cloak. So I ask if he needs it. Now courtesy is rolling, but he just trades it to me. I'm not going to argue from that. And we get 2 upgrades in 1 dungeon. So from 359 to a 392 cloak, which is huge. And we get those item levels. Now hopefully this is going to prepare us for our next one. You can see we're quite low on gold. We might have to do something about that. But overall, a successful dungeon. I'm quite happy for it. And we look forward to the next one. So hopefully you've learned a bit about Temple and how to tank and some extra tactics there. And I'll be looking forward to seeing you at the next episode. Take it easy and have a good one.